Ooh. Hello, friends. Ooh, I am hot. I'm already sweating. This is craziness. All right, hold on a second. Let me get myself some extra air. I'm dying here. Happy Tuesday, y'all. Happy Tuesday. Oh, shoot. Let me go here. How y'all doing? You know what? Let's just go live. All right. Yes, we are live everywhere. Hold on a second. Your girl is hot and sweaty because she be moving. All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Who's Getting Sued This Week. This is my live show where I teach business and legal concepts using pop culture and celebrity news. I talk a lot and I get very thirsty, so, you're going to see me drink water throughout the show. But I'm not going to hold y'all up too much. We are going to get right to it. Hello, round noonish. Hey, girl. You're right on time. Okay. First story that we are talking about. How many of you guys have ever had Famous Amos cookies? If you have ever had Famous Amos cookies, give me a cookie emoji in the comments. And if you're on TikTok, give me some hearts. Y'all be so stingy with the hearts. Yes. So if you've ever had Famous Amos cookies, what? Wow. My light really just played me right now. It said, congratulations, you played yourself. Hold on, guys. Thank you for the cookie. I gotta get my cord. The cord said, congratulations, you played yourself. But we stay ready so we don't have to get ready, right? Well, okay, so like I was saying, if you've ever had Famous Amos cookies, you may not realize that the Famous Amos brand has been a part of a long history having to with trademarks, right? Hold on, I gotta find somewhere to plug this in now. Okay. Hold on, y'all. Here we go. Wait, what's that? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. I gotta get this lighting situated, because if y'all can't see me, they're gonna turn my live off. Why don't you turn on? Okay, there we go. Okay. So, like I was saying, Famous Amos cookies, okay? If you didn't know, Famous Amos cookies, they were founded in 1975 by a guy named Wally Amos. So Amos is a real person, okay? And it was his aunt's cookie recipe, and, it became a sensation. You can find Famous Amos cookies anywhere. Somebody tell me right now in the comments, when's the last time you had some Famous Amos cookies? Or the last time you've seen them? You may not have purchased them, but when's the last time you saw some Famous Amos cookies, right? Here's the thing. Famous Amos was started by Wallace Amos, but it no longer belongs to him, okay? Because Wally, he made poor business decisions. He basically ruined his business, and he lost control of his company in the mid-'80s. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you guys all the time. You saw him 2 weeks ago at the corner store. The person who originated the Famous Amos name, because they did not take care of their business the way that they should, Wallace ended up losing his business. He lost control of the business, and he lost control of the name Famous Amos, right? So after he was pushed out of the company, the cookie company that he started, he tried to start another cookie company. He called it Wally Amos Presents, and the company that he started sued him for trademark infringement and prevented him from using his own name and own face on a product that he started. Guys, it is very possible for people to steal your brands if you don't have your, what do you call that, I's dotted and T's crossed. There was financial mismanagement over on Wallace's side. I don't know if you guys remember this story that was in the news. You guys remember Pinky from Slutty Vegan, and she lost control of her company for a while. She had to file bankruptcy, and she basically said, you know, she didn't know where the money was going. She didn't know what was going on in her own business. So much so that she had to restructure, and she lost control of her own company for a while, right? So same thing happened to Wally. And then when he tried to, you know, he's like, okay, well, I can't do Famous Amos. Let me do something else, Amos. They sued him and said, no, this is ours now. You're going to have to do something else. Another example, I don't know if you remember, well, not if you remember, but Rick Ross, okay? The rapper, his stage name is the real name of a gentleman who spent several years in prison, and he was he was a big you know, narcotics provider, seller, things like that. And Rick Ross, the rapper, because he went and trademarked the name before Rick Ross, the guy who was incarcerated, the actual Rick Ross, the man who the rapper has, you know, based his stage persona on, cannot use his own name when it comes to entertainment. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. But yeah, so same thing with Wally, okay? So he couldn't do Wally Amos Presents. And they told him he couldn't use his own name. So then he rebranded his cookies, and he rebranded as Uncle No Name, okay? Or No Name. Unfortunately, that went bankrupt by 1996. Then in 1999, under, I guess, Keebler at the time, owned the trademarks and owned the Famous Amos everything. So they brought him on. They brought on the originator of the Famous Amos recipe, brought him on as a spokesperson. Okay, so he got back in the fold, got back in his business, but he still didn't have control. He was just basically a mascot for the company that he started. Okay, so Amos, he was not deterred. He came back with something called Uncle Wally's Muffin Company, and he also started a company called Chip and Cookie in Hawaii. Okay, so while Wallace Amos was maybe didn't have he had a lot of troubles in business, you know, and I guess maybe he didn't know how to properly structure his business, didn't know how to run the finances, things like that, maybe let other people take care of that, ended up losing his business, brought it back, losing it, brought it, right? Now, many lessons we can learn from this. One, you need to know what's going on in your business, right? Two, you need to make sure that you trademark your brands so that you know, so that nobody can steal it from you, right? And another lesson we can learn from this is that while people can steal, you know, while people can steal one part of your idea, they cannot steal your originality, right? You as a business owner, while there may be other people who can do what you do, there's no one who can do it the way that you do, right? So if people are copying you, cool. You know what? Copy away. Now, that doesn't mean don't go after them if they're stealing your intellectual property. Absolutely go after them. But understand that those people, they can't make a move till you make a move, right? So when somebody is trying to copy you or steal your ideas and things like that, yes, you should be irritated, but also you should feel a little flattered because this person thinks that your stuff is fly and, they want to try and make a buck off of it. Hey, Dr. Magni, I Mason 1959. But at the end of the day, if you really believe in your brand, if you really believe in entrepreneurship and that is where your heart lies, you're going to be like Wally. You're not going to let multiple obstacles deter you. He lost use of his name. He was run out of his own company. He was hired back as a mascot, but he still was like, I want my own thing. He started his own brands, and he left with a very colorful legacy, right? Wallace Amos. He also wrote a couple of books called Man with No Name and The Famous Amos Story. And both of those books, he shares business wisdom and advocates for literacy and Black entrepreneurship. Okay. Now, these are things that I'm very passionate about. People understanding business terms, understanding how to run a business, and entrepreneurship, not just Black entrepreneurship for all, but yes, my POCs, this country's going crazy. We need to figure something out for ourselves, right? So it's really important that as you embark on this entrepreneurship journey, understand that it's not a set it and forget it type of thing. You need to be involved. You need to know what's going on in the back end, all right? Mr. Amos, he died, he passed away in August 2024, so just last year at the age of 88. And he will always be remembered for famous Amos. So, kudos to that Black man. All right? Okay. Yes. Let me take this down. Finish that story. Let's see, what's the next story that we are talking about? Oh, we're still in the cookie area, okay? We just talked about famous Amos cookies. Y'all, give me some of y'all favorite cookie flavors. What are some of y'all favorite cookie flavors? Please put them in the comments. Y'all over on TikTok, y'all give me some hearts now. Don't be stingy, all right? Let others know about me over there on TikTok. But for those of you watching, if you're able to, if you're driving, please keep your hands on the wheel. Give me your favorite flavor of cookies, because we have another cookie story. My favorite cookie flavors, I like chocolate chip. I like oatmeal, raisin. That's about it. Yeah, those are pretty much the only two. Ron Nooner said she likes chocolate. Okay, chocolate cookies or chocolate chip cookies? What kind of cookies? Oatmeal, raisin, raspberry cheesecake cookies. I don't think I've ever had that, but that sounds delicious. Okay, so while we talk about cookies, not just because I want some cookies, but because there's a lot of buzz happening in the cookie world. So there is a popular cookie company called Dirty Dough. Dirty Dough, right? They are they have it at Subway. Okay. This company, Dirty Dough, there was an event called the Utah Cookie Wars, and I guess they won. And they started a business called Dirty Dough. This company is now in hot water because they have not paid their bills. They got creditors, meaning, if you don't pay your lights, if you don't pay the gas bill, the heating bill, the whatever bills you have, they weren't paying their bills, right? And because they weren't paying their bills, they now have a lot of debt. They have $1.5 million of debt. All right. So, because they have all this debt, the creditors are coming after their trademarks. So this cookie company called Dirty Dough, they went through the process of trademarking the name Dirty Dough for their business. They're making money with it. And because they were on this show, are you kidding me? Utah Cookie Wars, their popularity exploded. People, they made a lot of money. Well, maybe they didn't make a lot of money. Anyway, their popularity exploded somewhere along the line. Think about what type of bills do you need if you are a cookie company. You have to pay your rent for the place that you are renting or the industrial kitchen you are using. You have to pay for electricity, unless that's included in your rent. If you have employees, you have to pay taxes. If you need supplies, you may buy those on credit. They may have bought a lot of things on credit and have credit card debt. They may not have paid their state taxes. So there's a lot of things that could amount to that debt, right? So because they have this $1.5 million debt, yes, the creditors are looking to take their intellectual property. They're like, give me that dirty dough trademark, because that trademark is worth money, right? So think about if I'm trying to think of a famous logo. Think about if Starbucks fell into debt. Let's just say Starbucks fell into debt for $10 billion, and they're like, you know what? To satisfy this $10 billion debt, we're going to take your Starbucks logo. What do you think that would do to Starbucks business? Because that would mean that Starbucks could no longer use that logo to sell their coffee. So how would that affect Starbucks? And think about, how is this going to affect Dirty Dough if they take their trademark? Does anybody have any ideas? Think about if Starbucks lost that logo and was no longer able to advertise themselves as Starbucks, right? There is a lot of goodwill. There's a lot of trust. There's a lot of consumer comfort with brands. That's why people like to go to their favorite brands. That's why people are brand specific and brand loyal, because they expect a certain amount of quality. So if you have built your business up to where your trademark, your logo, your name, your intellectual property has built up all of this goodwill, that is worth money. And someone can take it from you, okay? So you want to be careful out here. Yes, when you get your trademark, it is kind of, it's not necessarily something you can touch, but it is something that you can buy and take from someone, all right? Okay. Any questions before we move on to the next story? Any questions? If you just popped in, you're watching Who's Getting Sued This Week. We've gotten through our first two stories. Oh, this is a really good story. It's my people who are interested in the hemp or cannabis industry. If you are interested in the hemp or cannabis industry, this story is for you. And give me some type of plant emoji. It can be a leaf, a flower, a tree. Give me some type of plant emoji if you have an interest in the cannabis industry or the hemp industry. Okay? Why? Okay. So, while cannabis is still federally illegal, because we are making such headway amongst the states, the courts are becoming a little bit more lenient in how they rule against certain acts, right? Now, usually the rule by the law is if you are engaged in an illegal business, nothing you do is valid, right? So you can't really be sued for, contracts or supplies and things like that, because you were in a legal business to begin with, right? And some people have tried to use that to get away with certain bad acts within the cannabis industry. But let's take this story. So there is a company called BBK Tobacco and Foods, right? So BBK, they have trademarks for juicy and raw. No, I'm sorry. No, BBK has trademarks for juicy and raw, but only for hemp products, right? They sell cigars, they sell hemp products, things like that. So that's BBK. There's another company called JC Corp, and they were using those same names, juicy and raw, to sell products that contained THC. So you've got one company that is selling hemp products, which is totally legal by federal law. And then you have another, and they have their trademarks. And then you have another company that is using those same trademarks in an illegal business because cannabis is not federally legal, right? So JC, when they were sued by BBK for trademark infringement, they said, you can't sue us because cannabis is illegal. So you can't sue us. We're already in a legal business, so we don't have any standing. That was the defendant's argument, y'all. They're like, listen, we already breaking the law, so how you going to sue us? Because we already breaking the law. That was their argument, okay? So the court said, even if your business is illegal, that doesn't mean that you can go around violating people's intellectual property rights. I'm gonna tell y'all a little story. When I first started my business, I've told this story a few times. In DC, they had something called I-71 where they decriminalized cannabis use, but they left a loophole that started a crazy gray market, right? And because of this gray market, people were calling themselves business owners and were just ripping off. I saw people selling THC infused products using the Coco Chanel logo. They were using already established brands. And I was like, you can't do this. You're going to get arrested. So that is to say, especially in this day and age, yes, cannabis is still federally illegal, but because we know that businesses are out here flourishing under state laws that are allowing cannabis, the court is not just going to let you slide by because it's federally illegal, okay? So the tobacco company, they won against the cannabis company and they were able to defend their trademark. So do not think that just because your cannabis business is federally illegal that you can just use a trademark and they can't sue you. They can still sue you, okay? All right. Yes. Remove. Our next story of the evening. Oh, so I have an update for you guys. The last few weeks, I have been talking to you guys about the AI company Anthropic, right? Last week, I told you that they settled with a class action suit with a bunch of authors because Anthropic was pirating copyrighted materials to train their AI Claude, right? So they were supposed to go to trial, but Anthropic settled with the class action suit right before they went to trial. How much do you think Anthropic is going to pay to settle this lawsuit? How much do you think they're paying? I want to see some guesses from y'all. How much do you think Anthropic AI they're going to pay for the class action lawsuit against the rampant copyright infringement that they used to train their... Wow. You just looked at the story, didn't you, Obed? Obed got... Oh, well, you're not cheating. You're using your resources. You're exactly right. Anthropic has to pay $1.5 billion. Essentially, they copyrighted 500,000 individual works, and they have to pay $3,000 per work. Okay, so Anthropic is settling for $1.5 billion. Can you, oh, you saw it in the news recently? Can you imagine what type of award they would have gotten had they gone through the whole trial and won? And can you imagine what kind of profits Anthropic is making if they're willing to settle for $1.5 billion? $3,000 per violated work. 500,000 individual pieces of copyrighted information were used. So now they're paying out $1.5 billion. Okay. Now I feel like considering how big Anthropic and AI is getting, I'm sure that's going to be a drop in the bucket for them soon. But they didn't want that smoke with the court. So they settled and they were like, listen, let's just take our lumps and figure out, how to do this better. And this is considered a landmark case when it comes to AI and copyrighted material, because authors have been screaming out about this for some time. So this is a very important case for creatives when it comes to AI. Okay, so my creatives out there, you're going to want to keep that story in your back pocket for Anthropic AI and their settlement. Okay. Yes. So now we come to our TikTok story. Except for the people watching on TikTok, if you're watching me on any other platform, please give me a clock emoji if you have a TikTok account. If you are watching from anywhere other than TikTok, please give me a clock emoji if you have a TikTok account. Okay? So, I'm going to tell you what's going on with our lovely little TikTok these days. So, TikTok, they are going to trial in California against a Chinese company that says that TikTok copied their video and audio editing software. Thank you, Dr. Obed Magni, for the clock. So basically, this Chinese company says that TikTok stole how you do your reels and stuff on TikTok. This Chinese company is saying that TikTok stole that from them. Okay. Now, the judge, this is all coding and stuff. I don't know how to code, so don't ask me nothing about that. The judge for this case, they has determined that the Chinese company, which is called Meishi, they definitely do own the source code that that is being disputed. Hold on. So this company Meishi, they do own the source code, right? And you can copyright code, ladies and gentlemen. So my coders out there, please know that you are able to copyright your source codes, right? So while the court has found that the source code does belong to this company Meishi, and they have those copyrights, the court is saying that the court rejected one version of the code due to missing copyright. Not all of it was copyrighted, right? So they copyrighted some of the code, but not all of it, right? So when you are doing your code, from what I have learned as an intellectual property attorney, when you're copywriting code, you don't have to give them all of it. You have to give them the beginning, the end. If there's some proprietary stuff, you can keep those, right? But what they're saying is that there are multiple versions of the code that provides this editing software. So they need to know if the version of the code that TikTok is using, was that the code that is copyrighted. So my coders, my website builders, all you IT people, your source code, those are creations. Those can be protected. So TikTok, I don't know what's going to happen if TikTok is found guilty. Obviously, they'll have to pay some money, but that might mean that they might have to alter their editing software, right? Their audio and video editing software, which means that would mean, updates for the app. We'll have to learn a new thing, which, happens all the time. But as these apps become more and more popular, CapCut too. Yeah, probably CapCut. If you have code, if you have proprietary code, people, I need you to protect that too, okay? Especially if you plan on going public with it, unless you're like some type of hacker. Wait, what are you filtering? What was filtered? You know what? What? Okay, I don't know what was filtered, but yes. So keep an eye out in the next few days. Listen in the news. See if you hear about, TikTok and their lawsuit, okay? Thank you for the follow, Karen. Yes. So if you have just tuned in, you are watching Who's Getting Sued This Week. I am your host, Natalie Pierre Lewis. This is where we learn business and legal concepts using pop culture and celebrity news. How many of y'all watched wrestling as a child? How many of y'all watched wrestling when it was the WWF and not the WWE? If you watched wrestling when it was the WWF, give me an F in the comments, please. Okay? Yes. If you watched the WWF when it was the WWF and not before, thank you for the follow. But before it turned to WWE, give me F. Thank you, Brittany. Okay, so we all remember. What is it? Thank you, Dr. Obed Magni. We remember Macho Man Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, Rikishi. Brett Michaels. Who else do I remember? Ultimate Warrior, that man with the fringe. Andre the Giant. All them people, right? The Undertaker. Ooh, he was scary. Okay. So, but of all the rest, Kane, yes. But we all were, of anybody who we're going to remember Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was one of those originals who I remember, right? Despite, in his later years, it was kind of iffy on that reputation. But, hey, he was a fundamental character in my childhood. So as you know, Hulk Hogan passed away not too long ago. So of course, because he's a celebrity, somebody wants to do, a documentary. Everybody's doing documentaries. He's the R. I don't like him. Yeah. He's dead. You didn't know he died, girl? Yes, he died. Anyway, so because he's passed away, of course, they want to come out with a documentary. But this documentary, it's not necessarily going to show Hulk Hogan in a good light. It is centering on his SEX tape scandal, right? So his son has filed a lawsuit in court to prevent this documentary from coming out, right? He says that it's copyright infringement because they're using unauthorized footage. There's trademark misuse because, the Hulk Hogan name and the image, all of that is protected. Brittany said, I feel like I just saw him talking some R-word stuff on an interview. Yeah, that was an old interview, girl. That was old. Right? And then, there was an agreement in 2012 between Hulk Hogan and Bubba. Who is Bubba? Regarding this tape's use, right? Bubba is a radio host. Bubba is a radio host who I guess he likes Hulk Hogan. He's the one who wants to do the documentary. The son says, Bubba, what's your problem? You have an agreement with my father not to talk about this. So now Bubba, the radio host who wants to do the documentary, he said this lawsuit is doesn't make any sense because he doesn't own the documentary rights. Meaning the son, right? So he is saying that the son, Nick, is exploiting his father's legacy for financial gain. He's saying you're just trying to shake me down for money, on this for this story. Because even if they don't use Hulk Hogan's personal videos, right? This story was everywhere. All this guy Bubba would have to do is scour the different sources that talked about this incident and make the documentary. So while the son may not want this to come out because it's not going to paint his father in a good light, you can't get away from the fact that this was a news story. Your father is a public figure, and people are allowed to, make their commentary about his life as long as they have their ducks in a row. What? Okay. People text Brittany. You really, Brittany. You just gonna text me on my show like that? I'm just kidding. Thank you. Yes. So, while it may be hurtful, it may be embarrassing for Hulk Hogan's remaining relatives, and kids to see their father portrayed to the public in such a light. You can't prevent it because it's out there. It's fair use, right? So I say that to say this. If you don't want people making bad documentaries about you, live a good life. All right? Okay, so, rest where you supposed to rest, sir. I don't know where you at. I ain't got nowhere to put you. So wherever the powers that be put you, I hope you rested. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Do we have any Ohio State Buckeye fans in the house? Right. Do we have any Ohio State Buckeye fans in the house? My sister is a graduate of OSU. She never cared about football till she went to that school. Rest where you're supposed to. Yes, rest where you're supposed to rest, girl. Ohio State University, they are very well known amongst the sports community, and their team mascot is their team name is the Buckeyes. Okay. Now, Ohio State's rival is Michigan State. So in Michigan, there is a distillery called Ann Arbor. It's called the Brown Jug. That meaning they make alcoholic products. They are trying to register the phrase Buckeye Tears for beer and liquor products. So again, Ohio State and Michigan State, Canes. The Canes ain't even in this conversation, Dr. Obed Magni. Ohio State and Michigan State are rivals. Ohio State's mascot is Buckeyes. Oh, Michigan? Sorry, I don't sports, Obed. Thank you. So Michigan. Ohio's mascot is the Buckeye. There is a distillery in Michigan that is making liquor called Buckeye Tears. So Ohio State University has filed a legal opposition with the trademark office, meaning the school went to the USPTO and said, do not allow these people to name their beer Buckeye Tears, right? So, and Ohio State's argument is that it's a Buckeyes. It's a powerful brand. They earn over $145 million in royalties and $2.2 billion in retail sales in the past decade. So the term Buckeyes, and they are a dry campus too. I'm good, Aisha. They're a dry. I did not know that they are a dry campus. Okay, so I just got some news over here on the live. Ohio State University is a dry campus. They don't allow alcohol, right? So they don't want this Michigan distillery naming their liquor Buckeye Tears. Plus, they make billions of dollars off the name, and they're saying that it could mislead fans or dilute their brand, okay? They also argue the association of alcohol could harm their reputation and weaken the strength of the Buckeyes' identity. Like Brittany was saying, they don't really bang with alcohol too much, right? Now, this is unlikely to pass because the restaurant is located in Michigan. The Buckeyes are located in Ohio. So because Michigan is a rival, you're not going to find too many things named after the Buckeyes, right? The problem would come if they started using Ohio State's colors, logos, or recognizable symbols. But just using the term Buckeye in and of itself isn't that big of a deal, okay? So the Brown Jug, the distillery, hey, they are going to court on October. They have to respond by October 6th. How many of you guys think that Ohio State is going to win and they're not going to be able to trademark Buckeye Tears? If you think Ohio State is going to win, give me an O in the comments. If you think Michigan is going to win, give me an M in the comments. Brittany's giving me an O. Brittany thinks Ohio State is going to win. Does anybody think Michigan might win? My hair is making me hot. Whoo! Pardon me, y'all. Okay, who is it? Southern Maryland Realtor said, Lil Critten, you have a funny story about what? What is your story about? If it's not about Ohio State or Michigan, we're kind of on a specific topic. So I need to know why you would like to, what your funny story is about. Dr. Obed Magni said 50-50, but leaning OSU. You have a funny story about Michigan? Okay, let me see. All right. Don't come on here embarrassing me, okay? Hello?
Hello. All right. So, a funny story that I had about Michigan. I went to Michigan versus Ohio State.
Uh-huh.
Um, I like when Ohio State did like I think it was Michigan, but they like threw like a big flag in the middle of the field. They all got in fights. There was like pepper spray. They were getting arrested, like a lot of stuff. And the people next to me actually knew one of the players. And since that player got arrested, they got in trouble. I don't know how. But then,
Wait, so the Ohio State players and the Michigan State players were fighting on the field?
yeah, because I think it was like Ohio State that won. They
Okay.
placed like Ohio State on the Michigan field, and it
Okay.
got like real heated.
Okay, I believe that because if y'all didn't, thank you very much for that story, Lil Critten.
No
Because
problem.
football gets real serious. When I started law school, my first year, I was at University of Miami, and as a student of University of Miami, you get free attendance to the football games. So I went to. It was a game. It was University of Miami versus University of Florida, and they had not played each other in like 6 years, and they're huge rivals. That was my first University of Miami game, and it was my last University of Miami game. When I tell you, I saw grown men punching each other out, children crying, they were booing the players. I was like, this is not for me, okay? Thank you. Oh, thanks for the goal, y'all. Thank you. But yes, so sports is big business, and I'm sure there is a pride issue here. Ohio doesn't want Michigan out here selling Buckeye tears, but I don't think that they're likely to succeed because most people in Michigan aren't out here, looking out for the Buckeyes. There's not too many Buckeye-related things out in Michigan. And as long as they stay away from Ohio State colors, logos, and things like that, and recognizable images, they're fine. So that's a good try by Ohio State, but I don't think they're going to win. Dr. Obed Magny said, yep, Michigan won that game at Ohio State, planted the Michigan flag in the middle of the field. Oh, yeah, that's what Lil Crichton was talking about. Yes. All right, so we will see what happens between Ohio State and this Michigan brewery, but I don't think Ohio State's going to win this. Canes play UF again in a couple weeks. Let me tell you, when I went to that game, so they provided us a bus to go to get to the Orange Bowl, and you have to run right. You like the Orange Bowl is right in the middle of the hood. You got people were selling spots on their lawns for people to park at $20 a pop. And it took me 15 minutes to get to the stadium, but because of all the rowdiness and traffic by the end of the game, it took me 2 hours to get home. And that was when I said I will never go to a University of Miami game ever again. But yes. Okay. So y'all, I did not realize this whole time that I never pressed go on StreamYard. This was supposed to be up on YouTube. It's okay. I'll download it from one of these live streams and put it up on YouTube. But, okay. All right. Final story for the night. We are coming into our second installment of a new segment that I am calling I Got Indian in My Family. If you were not here last week, we started this segment talking about how the Dawes Commission was the Dawes Commission is a living example of how of contract law and intellectual property being used to disenfranchise people. So what does that mean? Do we have anybody here who claims American Indian, Native American ancestry? May it be it, there's so many different tribes, but if you have some type of Native American ancestry, let me know in the comments, right? So there was this thing called the Dawes Commission. So when the Europeans came to the United States, and particularly in the Midwest, the Dawes Commission essentially destroyed the Native American communal land system. And they were allotting Native Americans land on an individual basis. But in order to get that land, you had to be labeled Native, right? So it was so essentially, all right, Europeans come, things is going down with the Native Americans. It's not going well. They're like, we got to figure something out. They're like, okay, Dawes Commission, we want some of this land. You want some of this land. We don't believe in this communal system. We got the bigger weapons. Let's do this. Let's do this individual land system, and we'll give each Native American a plot of land. Kind of a sucky, resolution, but whatever. And of course, the Native Americans didn't have a concept of land ownership, so they're like, whatever, right? So because of this Dawes Commission, essentially the Native Americans agreed to a contract where they abandoned their communal land system. And in order to benefit from this communal land system, you had to be labeled or trademarked as a native person, right? But after the Dawes Act came something called the Racial Integrity Act. And this was the act that established the one-drop rule. It basically said if you were either white or you were colored, and there was not even the option of native. So if you're operating under the Racial Integrity Act, and you might, your family might have, you might have Native Americans in your family, you might be mixed, but they're saying you can either be white or colored. There's no native option. How are you going to get the land that you are owed if you don't even have the option of being recognized as a native person, right? So it's much like you know how what's his name, Tupe Fiasco over down there, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. He was talking about eliminating naturalized citizenship and all that stuff. Essentially, they said if you were not native by blood, you were if you were if you were a freed person of color, you could not inherit land under the Dawes rules because you were not considered Native American. There was no mixing. You could not check off the mixed box. You were either white, you were colored, and in some spaces you might be native. But because of the scarcity of land, because of the Dawes Commission, a lot of the tribes did not want to give the freedmen, meaning the emancipated slaves, the title of native, because that there wasn't a lot of land left, right? So through contract law and intellectual, I want to urge you guys to actually look these things up and think about it. They often say that the law is supposed to be devoid of emotion, but that is a lie. The law can be used to help. The law can be used to hurt. I remember I went to here in DC, we have something called the Museum of the Bible, and when they opened, they had an exhibit where they were showing how the Bible was used to support slavery and to fight slavery. And they actually had an entire floor where dedicated to the what they called the slave Bible, the version of the Bible that they gave the slaves, and showing how you can use what is considered the law, because a lot of these in that time, a lot of people use the Bible as their metric. You can twist it to whatever you want. That is the beauty and the curse of law, is the way you phrase it, the way you use it. You can bend it, you can twist it. It is you can only do that if you know it. So that is why I really stress teaching these concepts of business law, of intellectual property, of how to properly set yourself up, because you can get caught up if you don't understand. Okay? But I really encourage you to look up the Dawes Commission and the Racial Integrity Act. Think about them through the lens of contracts and trademarks, and think about how the Europeans used that to disenfranchise an entire society. So those were the stories that I wanted to talk to you guys about. I cannot believe that I did not put this thing up on YouTube. I'm so upset with myself, but that's okay. I will download it. But do we have any questions before we break for the it's 7:53 already? Wow. Thank you. Do we have any questions before we break for the evening? If you guys are interested in any of these stories and you had questions that you don't want to ask up here, I encourage you, hit me up in the DMs. I am very responsive. If you are looking to get some legal advice on your business, if you have some questions, that's what I do. You can book a free 15-minute consultation with me. Go look at my account page. The links are there. We will be back next week with more stories. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you guys. Any questions? Any questions? All right, y'all. Thank you for the love. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Brittany. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the engagement. I really appreciate all of you. We will be back here. Thank you, Dr. Obed Magni. We will be back here next week, same time, same place. Again, drop me a line in my DM box if you have something you want me to talk about on here. Okay? Bye, y'all.